everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today, obviously, I have a book haul to share with y'all. Recently, it was my birthday like 2 days ago, June the 19th, and now I'm years old. So yeah, that's super fun for me. And yeah, so I have quite a few books. Not all of these I got for my birthday. Some of these books I've gotten in the past few weeks, just like every now and then I'll pick up a single book. Target had a buy two get one free thing going on as well. Second and Charles also for Father's Day had buy two used books and then get two free, which was like wild. I also got a few unsolicited arcs, and these are the ones that I'm really interested in. We're gonna start with the arcs because I want to get those out of the way. I don't really know too much about them other than like the summary that I was like given, so we'll start with those. So I have Tread of Angels by Rebecca Roanhorse. I believe this one comes out in October or November, I'm not super sure. But in this book we follow a young woman named Celeste. I don't really know how this world is structured, but it is fantasy and there seems to be like ruling classes. Our main characters live in this mining town that's somewhat popular because of this element called divinity. And divinity is the remains of I think he's an angel, Abaddon, who fell to earth during Heaven's War, and this element is used in like technological like advancements and stuff. That's pretty much all I know, but I love Rebecca Roanhorse's like Black Sun, that whole series. I've loved Black Sun, I love Fevered Star. I'm really happy that I got this arc. This book is also described as fantasy noir, so that all sounds really good. The next book I have is Silver Under Nightfall by Chupeco, and this says, full of court intrigue, queer romance, and terrifying monsters, this gothic epic fantasy will appeal to fans of Samantha Shannon's The Priory of the Orange Tree and the adult animated series Castlevania. I haven't read Priory of the Orange Tree, but I have seen the first season and a half of Castlevania, and I loved like the dark gothic vibes of that show. In this book we follow a character named Remy, and he's the son of a duke. It seems like he has a bad relationship with his father. I think our main character is also some sort of bounty hunter for vampires, but there seems to be this new like breed of like vampires or something, and in order to like deal with them he makes unlikely friendships with this heiress vampire and her fiance. I don't really know much more about that. Anyways, but this part of the summary does intrigue me. But as the three face dangerous hardships during their journey, Remy develops fond and complicating feelings for the couple, so maybe it's polyamory, don't quote me because I don't know. He begins to question what he holds true about vampires, as well as the story behind his own family legacy as the rot, which is this virus that's like plaguing the country. As the rot continues to spread across the kingdom, Remy must decide where his loyalties lie, with his father and the kingdom he's been trained all his life to defend, or the vampires who might just be the death of him. So it looks like obviously court intrigue, someone is questioning everything that they've been told, vampires, there's a plague. It sounds really cool. So, and then this last book, this one sounds like the heaviest to me and one that I would probably like not pick up like right away, just like when I was in like a good mindset, and it's called Jackal by Erin Adams, and I believe this is a debut author. I could be wrong about that, but in this book we follow a black woman named Liz, and she goes back to a predominantly white town for a wedding. She's not really excited about that. Weddings in itself are kind of not my jam, they're kind of lame, but she also has to deal with obviously probably microaggressions and just like blatant racism in this town when a young girl, I think the daughter of the bride, goes missing. And this city has, or this town has, a reputation for young black people to go missing. One of the girls who went missing some time ago was found with like her chest like ripped open. I think it's gonna be like thriller, maybe horror, suspense, that kind of things. Oh, correction, all of the black people who have gone missing in this town are young girls. That's also a layer of the story. Sounds like this book could be very triggering. So those are the arcs I have. I will double check on the release of these books and I'll put them somewhere on the screen as I talk about them. So I have two middle grade books. I didn't buy a lot recently, but I do have Greenglass House by Kate Milford. I've already read this. I'll try to find the recent reads where I talk about this, but this is like adjacent fantasy book. There's not really a lot of fantasy in this, but it does feel like that. In this book we follow a young boy named Milo, and he and his parents kind of run a inn that's very popular among smugglers. It's kind of like an open secret that this inn gets a lot of smuggler traffic. This takes place a few days before the holidays, which is normally a time where Milo just has time with his parents. No one really like stops by for Christmas or anything like that. So it's very shocking that a handful of people stop by before the holidays looking for a room. It's very strange. Things start going missing, and Milo and his friend basically have this kind of like treasure hunt. Let's find out the secrets. It's kind of like a mix of a treasure hunt slash RPG type thing. that Milo and his friend play. I like this book. I thought it was okay. I gave it like 3 stars. I don't know if I'll continue with the series. You definitely can. But I got a good like closure from this. Like the story wrapped up pretty well. I don't feel like the need to continue. Maybe if I'm in the mood for another like cold, brisk setting, which this does take place like they're like snowed in, so maybe during like the more winter cooler time. So the next book I have is The Curse of the Wendigo by Yancy. This book series is about a young boy. I think his name is Will Henry, and Will Henry is the apprentice to a monstrumologist, which is a doctor who like studies monsters. I like the premise well enough, and I like the majority of what I read in the first book. Though I will say that the author, through his characters, makes some like off statements about cultures, societies that is not like white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, if you know what I mean. Like the first book, they spoke about this monster that was found in like, I want to say like Eastern Africa, and some of the comments that were made were kind of a little too out of pocket, a little too sus for me. And in this book, Will Henry and the doctor that he's like an apprentice of go to Canada to traverse through like the woods, I'm assuming in search of a Wendigo, and we'll see how he deals with this subject matter if it comes up again. I did get a lot of YA just because they're usually cheaper. Start with books in a series that I got. I got Bright We Burn and Now I Rise. This is book 2 and 3 in the I Darken trilogy by Kristen White. This series follows a gender-bent retelling of Vlad the Impaler. In the series, we follow a young woman. Her name is Lara Dracul. It's basically it, just like Vlad the Impaler, but if she was a young woman. She is still incredibly like bloodthirsty and like very driven. I would imagine she's supposed to be unlikable. Most people who have a reputation for impaling people are probably not likable people, but I did remember really loving the first one, and I haven't read it in a while, so I kind of want to read the first one and then continue on with the trilogy. It's historical fiction. I don't think there's like a fantasy element, though. I would imagine if you saw these covers, you'd probably be like, they look fantastical. I don't think there's any fantastical elements in this. It's strictly historical fiction, but like YA. Oh, and she does have a brother that I do remember him being kind of like that kind of soft boy, too kind for the world he lives in. That's also a character that I really liked in this story, as well as our main character. I did also get the second and third books in the The Mirror Visitor series by Christelle Dabos. I have The Missing of Clairdelune and then The Memory of Babel. This series, I read the first book somewhat recently and I absolutely loved it. This is YA fantasy, but it doesn't feel too YA-like. There might be some tropes that are like very YA, but I think the writing is fairly good. That being said, it is translated, so maybe that kind of helped the vibe. In this book, we follow a young girl named Ophelia, and she is from an ark, which are basically giant pieces of earth that broke apart. This takes place in like the far future, and Ophelia is from an ark called Animo, where people have this ability to touch objects and like see their history. Ophelia is very good at this, and she also has this extra ability that not everyone has, where she can travel through mirrors. She was perfectly content living on her ark for the rest of her life, but then her family promised her to another young man from a different arc, very different culture than hers, and I love reading that culture shock from her. She's not really like a strong female character, but I really did like how the author kind of stuck to this character. She didn't suddenly become like this super savvy kind of typical YA female heroine overnight, and she still hasn't really, she's not a tough girl. And I did see a hint of romance that I was really interested in. It seems like it's gonna be very slow burn. Like, they had their first conversation like halfway through the book, and I kind of liked how the author handled it. Anyways, I am very excited to continue the story. I don't know what this next series is called, but I did get books 1 and 2 in this series, Furyborn and Kingsbane by LeGrande. I've heard so much great things about this. The pitch for this series has always intrigued me. We follow 2 different women born like 1,000 years apart, and they're supposed to either be the Queen of the Sun or Queen of Blood or something like that, and their stories like link through time. That's pretty much like all I know, but it sounds so cool to me. I was only gonna get the first book because I've never read from LeGrande. I don't know if I'll like her writing or anything like that, but I did go to Goodwill as well as my local bookstore, and This was like less than $3, so I was like, well, might as well just get the first 2 books, and if I like the first one, I can just jump into the next one. So this next book is probably my most anticipated from this stack, and this is Flamecaster by Cinda Chima. This is I think the first book in the Shattered Realms novel. I hope it's the first book. They're not really like numbered or anything, but this takes place after the Seven Realms series, which I loved so much. I love the characters, I love the intrigue, I love all of it. It kind of like lost some of its what I loved about it in the like last 2 books, but I still thought it was a great series. This takes place immediately like after that, or maybe the generation after that. I could easily tell from the end of the previous series that the author wanted to do something within this realm again, so I'm very happy to jump back into this world. Very excited. So this next book I only got because I saw it at the Goodwill. It was less than $3. If it was anywhere else, I would not have picked it up. And that book is Gemina. This is the second book in the Illuminate Files. This series, it's kind of hard to explain what this is about. I feel like each book is supposed to be kind of somewhat related. This series is pretty like well known for it being told in like mixed media format. The first book was about a couple of people in space escaping from like an evil company or something. I hear these are best listened to like on audiobooks as opposed to reading them, but I had a good time reading it. I thought the mixed media format was really good visually to look at. In this book we follow a young woman who is the daughter of a station captain, and then we follow another character named Nick who is part of a notorious crime family. They get together to like find this assassin that invades the station, this space station. Don't really know much else. This next book I already read, but I wanted my own physical copy. Again, it was found at the Goodwill, so that is Ash Princess by Sebastian. This is very like tropey YA, but I for some reason really loved reading this. It was very like delectable, like kind of like when you pick up a new like usually like reality TV show and you're kind of like you start getting really addicted and you kind of just like binge through all of it. That was my feeling towards Ash Princess. I really enjoyed my time with it. It was very fun. The ending, I did feel very emotional reading the ending. I don't know why it got me good, but it did. In this book we follow a young woman named Theodosia, and she is the princess of her kingdom, but then it gets invaded by some assholes and then her mother is killed. She's pretty much kept as a political prisoner and like a symbol of like the failure of this country after like 10 years of just like letting it happen to her. Mind you, she is a kid, right? She's not like an adult. She kind of gets, you know, she gets her shit together and she's like, you know what, absolutely not. It's about time I rebel and like fight for myself and my people. So it's a rebellion story. The first book is probably the best because of the like court intrigue and like the anxiety that I felt that if she speaks out of turn or if she does something even remotely sus, they'll just like kill her. The like, because she's pretty much under their eye the entirety of the first book, so that was probably the best aspect of this trilogy. And the beginning of the series does start off with like a death that really like emotionally like it stunted me for like a hot second. So yeah. So the next book, very popular, I have Iron Widow by Xiran J. Zhao. I mean, I feel like everyone's kind of seen this book or heard about it. This is like Pacific Rim, which is one of my favorite properties. Pacific Rim meets Handmaid's Tale, and we're following like a kind of reimagined sci-fi fantasy version of the only female empress China ever had, which was Wu Zetian. That's pretty much all I know. I know that there's like these mecha robots that like expect a lot from like their female pilots. I believe it's also polyamorous as well. Very popular. I'm sure everyone has an idea of what this book is about and why people love it so much. This next book is Before She Ignites by Jodi Meadows. I feel like I used to see this cover everywhere, maybe not talked about book-wise, but like I felt like I saw this cover everywhere. In this book we follow a young woman and her name is Mira, and I think she's like the princess, or she was this like very important figure in her country. Like there was peace treaties like signed on her name. Like she was a very like, she was like an important figure. I don't know, maybe like a Kennedy or something, I don't know. One day she kind of discovers this like secret that kind of like changes her perspective on like her country and like everything that she knows, and for some reason she's like sent to the pit, which is like a jail, and there's a guard that like is trying to get at her secrets, or I that's all I know. It also looks like there's dragons, so that's pretty tight, so that's all I know. Again, this was part of the buy two get two free, so this was the free one. Give the Dark My Love by Beth Revis. I believe this contains either necromancers, which I love that concept. In this book we follow a character named Nedra, and I think her kingdom is starting to get like completely ravished by this like plague or something, and she has to like turn to necromancy, I think, to like save everyone. That's all I want to know. I love necromancers. I'm immediately like drawn to those characters, so I didn't really need to know much more before picking this up. And it doesn't look like it'll be too long, so another plus. This next book, I'm probably gonna love this one just because everyone's spoken so highly, and I'm not like a very critical reader. Like, I can find something to like about any book that I read. I feel like there's gonna be a lot about this book that I'll love, and that is Firekeepers Daughter by Angeline Booley. This, I believe, is just like mystery thriller YA, but it touches on a lot of triggering subjects. I think there's gonna be deaths. I think there's gonna be like drugs, narcotics, things like that. I believe our main character is part Ojibwe and the other part is not. I don't know specifics, but other than like everyone's really liked this and enjoyed it, and I want to love it as well. And I'm assuming there's also gonna be like secrets, like adults holding secrets over children or something. I don't know. I think those are all the YA books, so let me move on to adult. This next book I'm very excited about, and that is Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I heard that there are giant spider alien things in this, and I was like, I love that concept, so I'm just gonna pick it up. From what I can gather, in this book we follow humans who are leaving a dying Earth, and they follow a couple like maps that their ancestors left for them in order to find like a new terraformed Earth or planet that's like Earth for them, but when they land there they find these like giant alien monsters, and it's kind of like a battle of like who claims this land. I don't know. Maybe we'll touch on certain things of like colonization and like territory and like all this kind of stuff. I don't know what this is going to touch on, but other than it sounds cool. So yeah, this next book also very loved, very popular, and that is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. In this book we follow like a group of like old washed up bounty hunters or something, or mercenaries, and in this world mercenaries are treated like rock stars, so they're kind of like in the twilight of their life, and they come together for one last like hurrah and like one last mission. I hear it's funny, and I really want to love it because it sounds like a good, funny, lighthearted fantasy, but with like darker, maybe like gritty vibes. I don't know. In the back of the book, John Gwynne says that there's great characters, specifically lovable rogues, which I love, so I don't think I need to speak more on why I wanted to pick this up. This next book I picked up on a whim. Again, this is part of the buy two get two free. That is The Summer Dragon by Todd Lockwood. I've never heard this book. I've never seen anyone hold it up. I've never seen it on like the DAW Instagram or anything like that. I saw it on the shelves and I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. In this book we follow Maya, and her family raise dragons for, I guess, like war purposes, and then some war drama happens, and that kind of just like puts a hamper on her and her family's like business. I don't really know. And then a summer dragon appears in her like valley or her neck of the woods, and summer dragons are supposed to be like very rare. They're like an omen, and she kind of gets caught up into some political drama or something. Again, I don't know much else. I was also flipping through this book and I found like pictures. I didn't know that there were pictures in here. I love that. I only have 3 more. So I have For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. This is the first book in the Wilderwood series. I don't know how many books are going to be in here, but this book has been all over like my Instagram page for quite some time, and I believe this is supposed to be like a Beauty and the Beast Red Riding Hood reimagining. Our main character Red is supposed to be sacrificed to this wolf for reasons I don't really know, but it turns out the wolf is a man. She also has some sort of like secret that she's harboring. This next book is one that I've been wanting to start for a while because I always see them like available like on my library, but never the first book, and that is A Curious Beginning. This is the first novel in the Veronica Speedwell series. I believe this takes place in London in the late 1800s. Follow a young woman named Veronica, and she's like single, but she also just like wants, it seems like she just is very comfortable being independent and like not tied down to anyone, but it seems like for some reason someone wants her dead, and her and this like kind of grouchy guy team up together to find out why someone wants her dead. But it seems kind of like a silly, kind of cozy Victorian mystery series. And the last book I want to talk about is another book that I've heard great things about, and that is The Maid by Nita Prose. I believe this is supposed to be like a murder mystery. We follow a character who's a maid, and she like finds a dead body, and she kind of gets wrapped up in that whole like mystery, but our main character is also on the autism spectrum, and I guess that also kind of plays a part in this story. I have been really into like mystery as like the genre, or like mystery subplots. I can't get enough of them right now, so I really like gravitated towards this when I first heard about it. I don't want to read the rest of like the summary inside. There's like a huge paragraph here, but I don't want to read it. I don't want to spoil myself or anything. It is a mystery. There's a dead body. That's all I need to know. So those are all the books that I have to talk about. It was quite a few. It's like 20 something books. So yeah, let me know if you've read any of these, if you've enjoyed any of these, if I put any of these on your radar. I'd like to hear anything you have to say in the comments down below. I will also link my social media down below, as well as some far more important links. Feel free to like, dislike, comment, or subscribe, or do neither. It's all cool with me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.